Today, I'm introducing you the chosen commodity of Group 5, which is the asparagus or the Asparagus officinalis in her scientific name. So, asparagus um, is belong to family Liliaceae, which it has a calories and a source of a nutrients which is includes the fiber, folate, and the vitamins. So although asparagus, there are several type of asparagus, but others are for spices and edible use only. So excuse me, eating asparagus has many special benefits, including weight loss, improved digestion, healthy outcome, and healthy outcome when it comes to laboring and lowering asparagus can lower your blood pressure. So these are just some of benefits of eating asparagus. So asparagus have relatively few pests like asparagus beetles, aphids, caterpillars, and in terms of in terms of growing asparagus, you need just seedling of it, and when it's reach 2 inches height, so you can transplant into a growing bed. It takes 2 to 3 for a young plants to develop maturity. In annual harvesting, um, 4 to 6 years, 4 to 6 years only. That's it.
Insect pest. So we have here the one of the common insect pests of asparagus, which is the asparagus beetles. Actually, there are two beetle pests of asparagus, the common asparagus beetle and the spotted asparagus beetle. But distinguishing between these two types of beetle is important because the common asparagus beetle will more likely to cause damage to the crops. Next. Common asparagus beetles are about 1/4 inch long with a color of bluish black and cream colored irregular shaped spots on its back. They usually appear and lay their eggs in asparagus fields where the spear starts to emerge. While the spotted asparagus beetle appears later than the common ones. They are this reddish orange with 6 black spots on each wing, and they generally lay their eggs on the ferns. Now, if you notice that your asparagus is turning brown or has sunken purple oval-shaped lesions on the spears, then it is being attacked by those beetles. But there are these controls that helps eliminate the asparagus beetles. One of the cultural way of controlling is by removing the ferns in late fall rather than the spring, since the beetles usually passes through the cold season. Burning old stems at the end of the year also helps. For the physical control, it can be by hand picking, placing a pail of water on the ground where many beetles would drop into it when knocked from the plants. For its biological control, tiny parasitic wasps is the natural enemy of the common asparagus beetle. It kills their eggs by feeding on them, and also the immature wasps grow inside the beetle that kills them during pupation. But the common and easiest way to eliminate field damages due to pest attacks is of course the application of organic and synthetic insecticides.
Weeds in asparagus. Nature of damage of pests. If perennial weeds such as yellow nutsedge, feld bindweed, swamp smartweed, Johnson grass, and Bermuda grass will be established, they can be a troublesome throughout the growing period by reducing crown vigor and density and ultimately asparagus yield and quality. Sign and symptoms. A perennial weed tends to develop of the head and tail of fields such as spot thrift infestation. So once the spears have grown into fern, cultivation and hand removal of weeds during the fern would be difficult. Weeds management. In cultural control, cultural practices such as proper field selection, fallow treatment, cultivation, and hand removal help to lessen the fewer weeds. A combination of chemical and cultural can give the best result. In chemical control, pre-emergence herbicides is the other way of herbicides control to avoid resistant weeds. In biological control, there are only limited research, so therefore, there are currently no biological control agents. Further research is needed to investigate fire and biological control as tools for asparagus weeds. Lastly, physical control. Cultivation and hand removal is the physical control used for asparagus weeds.
Hi, my name is Sheila Pilapil and I am going to discuss about the disease pathogen. So, the nature of damage of pests. Asparagus was caused by Poxinia aspergeri and was originally described in France in the year of 1805. So, it appeared in New Jersey in the year 1896. So, it spread to every region where asparagus grow. So, over the year that asparagus was spread and has many numerous of cause in that damage towards pests. So the disease called dwarf asparagus. So it diverted into the name dwarf asparagus. So the diseases that cause asparagus is the target of the diseases that cause asparagus was the seedling and the matured plant. So first Fusarium pathogen plant associated with this the Fusarium and another foliar disease that contribute to losses in asparagus in the worm. So humid environment is also called is Cercospora blight caused by Cercospora asparagus sac. So for us to determine what are those symptoms of asparagus, we should have to see and compare some of the plant who infected with diseases and who is not infected or it's been normal. So asparagus sign of symptoms. When we see our plant are turning into and changing their color, then let's just determine which name or what caused the plant turns that way. So when asparagus, the symptoms of asparagus is when the symptoms appear, it will become red or brown, elongated spot asparagus, stem, branches, and leaves and pears. So when we see that our plant are turning red or brown, elongated, so that we have to consider that way that our plant or our crops are has an illness called asparagus rust. So the second one is the onion leaf blight. So onion leaf blight is a disease appears most often found in the windward side because blowing with saccharides. So as what my research or my the Google says that when onion blight appears in the plant, they sometimes have light green hole, which means nimurag spot sa iyang tawag ini sa iyang kanang onion, like mag-spot siya og brown like ana, and then may appear water soaked. So over watery ang plant kay magkakos pud siya og mga anan illness. They are sometimes called na fungi which we can't determine anyway. So the epidermis around the spot may be silvery. So matingala ta mo siya og silvery daw. And then when the Moria spot are present, leaf tips die back and the wool leaves have eventually died. As we can observe when we see about the onion, when it turns to laya na siya, kay mag brown siya dayon, kuan kanang it turn to die na. So lata na kaayo siya guys. Murag mo lata na gid siya. So that's it and thank you.
So there are four control methods to prevent this kind of disease pathogens. So first is the cultural control, second is the physical control, third is the biological control, and fourth is the chemical control. So cultural control. Plant crops grows with the ample spacing and in the direction of the prevailing wind to increase and movement and minimize periods of prolonged foliar wetness. To manage this plant density and spacing as well as the irrigation practices. So second is the physical control. So one of the example of that is the scouting. So scouting is the essentially or monitoring your field's disease or any potential issues that could disrupt the crop growth. Planting a scout is also practice crop rotation up to 2 years or long. And third is the biological control. One of the example of that is the using by the herbivore induced volatiles are the involved in plant communication with natural enemies to plants with damage by pests. And lastly is the chemical control. One of the most effective way is to apply fungicides. As we know, fungicides is help to the crop or to the plant to stop or inhibit the growth of the fungal disease and also to help to keep healthy plant or crops by preventing.
Other peas. The European asparagus aphid. The European asparagus aphid is a small, blue-green to gray-green aphid about 0.6 inches or 1.5 millimeters in length. The aphid is often covered with a powdery wax. Unlike most aphids, the conicles of European asparagus aphids are reduced to particularly and visible opening on the abdomen. The coda ejections at the very rear tip of the abdomen is relatively long compared with other aphid species and has sides that are nearly parallel. The antennae are short. Nature of damage of peas. Damage from European asparagus aphids primarily from toxin that the aphids inject into the plant when feeding. The toxin causes shortened internodes on subsequent growth, resulting in a soft seed appearance that is called bonsai growth. While other European asparagus aphid infestations produce this distortion in great proportion. Heavy populations also produce massive amounts of honeydew that may lead to considerable toxicity. Signs and symptoms. Sinus symptoms and effects reduce plant vigor. Stunting and deformed plant spot are common symptoms of aphid infestations. In some cases, it's the production of honeydew or presence of sooty mold that alert the gardener to an aphid outbreak. Management. Cleaning fields of crop debris and encouraging natural enemies are important in managing this pest. Monitor field ages regularly to detect the appearance of populations. Cultural control. Mowing, chopping up, and then incorporating ferns during dormant season may substantially reduce eggs in the area. Burning is also effective where permitted. Physical control. Aphids seems to have developed a range of physical and chemical measures to limit the amount of calcium in flux in response to star puncturing. Loss of seaweed element storage pressures induced by stylet insertion is minimized by the minute stylet volume. Biological control. Natural enemies, especially parasitic wasps, and lady beetles, help control European asparagus aphid population. Most of the parasites, such as Diarrhea, have their greatest impact on heavy population after the damage is done. A species of viruses imported and released to control European asparagus aphids has had a little success to date. General predators such as the convergent lady beetle may feed on the European asparagus aphids, but the European asparagus aphids' rate of reproduction can overwhelm the predator's impact. Encourage natural population of parasites by delaying pesticide application where possible. Chemical control. General action thresholds to determine whether and when to treat for aphids in vegetables crop only use insecticide applications when needed.